First of all, let me get a Russian perspective from your side. What did you pick up in Moscow about the scenes in Washington that happened this week? Laughter, joy, tears, disbelief, or all of them?
Well, George, you can imagine it's been a mixture of all three. I'm, reminded of the term. It's a German term. It's a beautiful word in the German language, schadenfreude, which essentially translates into, it's hard to describe it, but it translates into sort of, reveling in the sort of distress of an enemy. Now, there's less of that than you would have imagined in Moscow. I think the first response was abject shock. I mean, nobody expected this. After the toing and froing with Zelensky, he will sign, he won't sign, President Trump's dictator comments, or did I call him that? So people were sort of expecting a rapprochement between the two, that a PR exercise will be pushed over the line in order to get something from this deal, this minerals deal, which is a paper tiger in many ways. And interestingly, just prior to this meltdown in the Oval Office, Donald Trump had made a very interesting comment on Fox Radio. It wasn't that widely publicized, but he had said, look, we don't know what's in Ukraine. We don't know how much minerals are there. We don't know, do they have any minerals at all? But at least it's something. It's going to get us something back, so we're going to kind of pursue it. He sounded kind of tired at that stage. Now, remember, very senior officials had gone to Kiev and had been screamed at, apparently, by Zelensky, to the dismay of the regime there. And it culminated in this trip. The view here is one of, amazement, but not surprise. I saw a very good meme, which I posted on my X, of Donald Trump calling Vladimir Putin and saying he's completely insane, and President Putin saying, yeah, told you, kind of thing. So there's a kind of a sense here in Russia that, and we told you so, that it's very difficult to deal with this individual, that he's not a statesman. And everything that you know in the West about Volodymyr Zelensky, of course, has been manufactured. This manufactured Churchillian figure. And you and I, as people who've studied history, know that Volodymyr Zelensky, whatever you think about Churchill, I'm an Irishman, and I'd have problems with Winston Churchill, but you can't argue that the man was a giant of international politics. He loved his country, even though he may have been a very flawed individual. To sort of portray Volodymyr Zelensky as a Churchillian figure, as soon as you heard that, people should have sat up and said, there's something wrong here. The man is essentially an accelerated stooge of an oligarch, Ihor Koyminsky. And I've written this week long passages about this, particularly for the American audience, to introduce them to who this man really is. And in Russia, people are very well educated politically. They want to talk about politics. So there's been a sense of shock. There's now a sense of, well, we've told you so, but what happens next? And what's important about this, I think, from here, from this side of the pond, if you like, is how Europe is reacting. How Europe is scurrying around in this vacuum, trying to portray some sort of plausibility to the war. That they're so far up this war, the pipe of this war. People like von der Leyen, such investment in political capital, in fiscal capital, in the self-harm sanctions that have destroyed and degraded the beating heart of Europe's economy, Germany. The amount of political careers that have failed as a result of this utterly foolhardy support of the war. That is how the Europeans are going to try to cobble together some sort of plausibility to continuing this war, while the Americans, this Leviathan, and we all know when America motivates itself to get behind somebody, it's very hard to defeat them. Ask the Japanese. How are they going to sort of maintain this, utterly false facade of plausibility around a war which can't be won militarily, and is being essentially fronted by a grossly corrupt regime which is brutalizing its own people? That's the sense here. What happens next, particularly with an eye on Europe?